STRATOLAUNCH. Earlier on in this video, we talked about the STRATOLAUNCH, created by Microsoft founder Paul Allen. While rumors of Allen's attempts to manufacture an even larger plane are swirling, nobody can be certain that they're to be believed. As such, the original STRATOLAUNCH remains the largest airplane in the world and is more than deserving of a spot in this video. As we mentioned in the missing topics section, this aircraft has a wingspan of close to 120 meters, which is the largest of any plane in history. But let's look a little closer at the specs of this behemoth. The plane has a length of 73 meters, which Allen liked to brag put it at double the size of the Millennium Falcon. He was also understandably proud of the aircraft's ability to reach dizzying altitudes despite its 5,000-pound frame. The STRATOLAUNCH is still in its fine-tuning stage. Its development was hindered by the death of Paul Allen in 2018. But there are also a number of logistic issues that have prevented it from completing flights on a regular basis. Chief among these issues is the fact that the aircraft requires an exceptionally long runway in order to take off. On top of that, there just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of demand for an airplane larger than a football field. Sure, it's a cool novelty, but many critics have pointed out its lack of practicality, brushing it off as a vanity project by a dying inventor determined to redefine his legacy. But while the STRATOLAUNCH may never overshadow Allen's work with Microsoft, his fans can take solace in the fact that it'll literally overshadow everything else it flies above. Caspian Sea Monster. Not all airplanes venture tens of thousands of feet into the sky. Some are more effective closer to the ground, such as the Caspian Sea Monster. The Caspian Sea Monster was an aircraft created by the Soviet Union in the 1960s. Rather than climbing high into the clouds above, the experimental vehicle hovered over the ocean at an average height of 5 meters. This actually caused some maritime authorities to mistakenly classify it as a ship, but its engineers were always quick to clarify that it was an aircraft. And it wasn't just any aircraft. At the time of its existence, the Caspian Sea Monster was the single largest aircraft in the world. It had a wingspan of 37.6 meters, which was almost inconceivable when it was first constructed. It had a length of 92 meters, putting it at about the same size as the Antarctic blue whale, the largest animal on the planet. For a little while, it seemed like the Caspian Sea Monster was going to be the centerpiece of the Soviet Union's military vehicles, but it was destroyed in a crash in 1980 and subsequently removed from the Army's arsenal. Details of the crash are scarce, but it's likely the aircraft's gigantic size caused some navigational difficulties. We guess the Caspian Sea Monster was just too big for its own good. C-5 Galaxy. Before there was the Lockheed Martin airship, there was the Lockheed C-5 Galaxy. Like its successor, the C-5 Galaxy was an aircraft used by the United States Air Force to transport sizable pieces of cargo and high-ranking military personnel. Now, building an aircraft of any size isn't easy, but the manufacturing of the C-5 Galaxy was particularly complicated. The production process was continuously hampered by design flaws and logistics issues, many of which were caused by the aircraft's immense weight, which almost exceeded 400,000 pounds. The plane's development was also plagued by funding issues, which caused it to come in at more than $7 billion over budget. Once the aircraft was unveiled in 1970, the United States government made sure to get its money's worth. The plane was immediately put to use, carrying equipment and troops to Vietnam. In the wake of the Vietnam War, the C-5 Galaxy was deployed to a struggling country to deliver humanitarian aid. It became a wartime weapon again as the U.S. ramped up its presence in Afghanistan and Iran. Around this time, many C-5 planes were retired, and the military introduced the Lockheed Martin airship in their place. However, a small number of C-5 Galaxies remain in use today, although they're primarily deployed on more minor missions. A340-600. With the ability to carry almost 400 passengers at once, the Airbus A340-600 is one of the largest commercial aircrafts in the world. It's over 75 meters in length and almost 18 meters in height, so it's no wonder this aircraft has long been favored by the German airline Lufthansa. As one of the leading names in commercial aviation, it's a lot to gain from deploying a plane as mind-blowingly gigantic as this one. It allows them to easily accommodate the hundreds of passengers clamoring for a flight without compromising space in the cargo below. In fact, it was so determined to cram as many passengers into this plane as possible that they renovated the aircraft to give it an even greater maximum capacity. They removed the toilets from the passage deck of the plane and replaced them with additional seating for economy customers. The toilets, meanwhile, were relocated to the cargo hold. This solved another problem. The inability to fill up the cargo space no matter how hard they tried, even with the luggage of almost 400 people, this plane's 55-ton cargo capacity proved virtually impossible to fill. Maybe they should have taken a page out of the Super Guppy's book and used this aircraft to carry smaller versions of itself. Tu-160. For this next entry, we're heading back to the days of the Soviet Union. As you may have gathered already, the USSR took great pride in their oversized aircrafts. They were particularly proud of the Tupolev Tu-60, a supersonic strategic bomber first introduced in 1987. Unfortunately for Soviet forces, the USSR disbanded shortly after the Tu-160 aircraft was unveiled. However, the plane was far too impressive to simply be tossed aside like so many other military vehicles. Instead, it was purchased by Russia for a sum of $285 million. We know that sounds like a lot, but it becomes a veritable steal when you consider the potential of the aircraft. Despite being a little on the older side, it holds the distinction of being the largest combat bomber in the world, with a length of 54 meters, but the aircraft's massive size does little to slow it down. With a maximum speed of 1,379 miles per hour, it's also the world's fastest bomber jet, which explains why the Russian military has been so reluctant to retire it. Rather than deploying more modern jets, the Russian government has spent tens of millions of dollars to update its fleet of Tu-160 planes. Currently, the typical Tu-160 boasts a series of innovative, high-tech features. These include a digitalized cockpit, advanced GPS navigation, and perhaps, most terrifying of all, an intricate laser-guided bomb system.